Hi everybody, I apologize for the bad sound. This is Jessie Haynes, the social media lead organizer of We Are Atheism, and the views expressed in this blog are mine and not representative of the entire organization. That being said, I am coming from a place deeply rooted in the We Are Atheism mission, and that is to change the face of atheism. And I believe that that face of atheism needs to be a face of empathy. So that's what we're talking about today in Horrible Politics, Religion, What the Fuckery, and Humanism as Looking at the Individual. The very long, ridiculous title of this blog. And when I say empathy for atheists, I'm not talking about empathizing with other atheists per se, though it's important. I'm talking about empathizing with the people who are religious, who are adherents to pseudoscience, you know, the person who goes to read the horoscope or engages in homeopathy, who goes to see their chiropractor, whatever, these people. But I'm not talking about people who are actually manipulators, the person who is pretending to be a psychic to get the money out of a widower who wants to say goodbye to her husband, or rather a widow who wants to say goodbye to her husband. Whoops. You know, I'm talking about the widow needing the religious sentiment perhaps in a funeral service, but I'm not talking about someone who is deliberately manipulating someone. So those individuals that are manipulators, because I'm not saying everyone is, and this is an important part of my first point, people are not groups. So I'm not talking about entire groups. Every psychic is somebody who knows that they're not capable of what they're doing. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying the people I'm not talking about empathizing with are the people who I find myself incapable of empathizing with. The manipulators, the actual through and through manipulators, are not the people I'm talking about. But I am talking about people whose beliefs are different, whether it be their religion or whatever. We need to empathize with these people on an individual basis, which brings me right into people are never groups. I am very guilty of thinking, you're a woman, you can't be, you can't be a feminist and still be a Republican, something like that. Guilty as hell of thinking such a thing, of saying such a thing, but it's not true. Yes, dear?
I just want to paint.
Okay, then go paint. Sorry about that. Dangers of having a toddler. So, this is not a fair and humanist thing to do, and I'm not trying to step on everybody's toes by saying it's not a humanist thing to do. I've done it. I consider myself a humanist. That's kind of part of being a human. We make mistakes. But when you group people, when you stick them all into a pot and boil out all the differences and then say, these are humanists, you are making them less than people. You cannot empathize with a group the way that you can empathize with a person. Empathizing with a group is basically the emotional equivalent of slacktivism. So I'm talking about seeing people as individuals. It brings us into our next point. Beliefs are not in a vacuum. So when it comes to somebody who is deeply religious, someone who is very into right-wing ideas and republicanism, when somebody is a fundamentalist in any religion, their beliefs don't exist in a vacuum, and they are not a group or a statistic. And one human to another, we should not be discounting them just because, bam, they believe this thing. They're part of this group. Once I see this group, it's like I've blocked that tag in my ideas. Which, a little anecdote that got me thinking about this deeply is two of my biggest friends in social media that I talk to a lot all the time are both very conservative religious people. These are people that love Ted Cruz, share Jesus memes, and believe that everything should be prayed about. These are not beliefs that I hold, but these are two of my dearest friends. I have realized that they are. And this is something that did not compute for me when I started to think about it, and I thought, well, that's awful. And I've been into a couple of really uncomfortable situations, ranging from something as minor as ugh, why are you tweeting about how much you love Ted Cruz? Block all tweets with Ted Cruz in them. Or I post something that's an atheist meme and they tell me how I'm very ignorant and unknowing because I am an atheist. So these are uncomfortable conversations and I didn't know how to handle them. And I decided that I wasn't going to say anything because I didn't know how to handle it, and we just kept on with our relationship and neither of us has really talked about it. And until I know exactly what to say, I'm fine with that, because on all other levels I respect and enjoy the company of this person. So when I figure out how I want to deal with what happened, I think that I don't need to say anything because it's in the past. Surely it will come up again, as I have not stopped sharing angry atheist memes. So, and I've noticed my Ted Cruz block doesn't work on Twitter. But anyhow, so what really changed for me is I realized that I wasn't seeing people as their groups anymore, and it was important. Once I empathized with where people's religious beliefs came from, or the fact that they got them from somewhere and they need them for something, that's how they defined them. And I'm speaking too general here, which is a bad idea on the topic. And I don't want to discuss specific people that I know, because it wouldn't be hard to figure out who they are. But I'm going to talk about somebody who's very public about their religious beliefs. This is a person that I respect on a business level, and I've been following for years. And they are very militantly Christian and right-wing. And their politics are, to me, like every time I see it, I'm like, ew, but on everything else, this is a person who, when I watch their vlogs, I cry with them. I think about how they're doing. I ask them how their day was. I keep up with their life, and they're part of my life. And I came to realize that I wasn't thinking of her as part of the group anymore. And I started to think how I couldn't think of people as part of groups anymore because it was dehumanizing. It was unfair of me to think ugly things like, oh, you're a Republican, even though you're a woman, you hate all women. And nothing you say about women matters, and just ugly thoughts. And yeah, I'd be lying if I said I didn't have all these kinds of thoughts. But I think developing the empathy for people as people instead of focusing on groups, and just treating individuals in our lives as individuals, and focusing on that when we see these hilarious raw stories and things like that, stuff from Right Wing Watch. Those are individual people that have done certain things, and I'm not getting into the deeper issue of what it means for people in the public eye who are representative of groups to do things. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about us as atheists, as individuals. Me, you, personally. When we deal with people, when we find out that they're devoutly religious, when all of a sudden they want us to say grace over coffee, you know, let's not think right away they're one of them. Let's remember who they are to us, and if we don't know them, let's let them have the opportunity to just be a human and not be part of the group. And I think that's a really important way to move forward, which brings us into our third and final topic I want to discuss in this vlog before it gets too long. Questions and understanding need to come before arguments and telling someone they're wrong. I'll be saying a lot more on this topic when I get more into a manual for creating atheists. I have the Kindle version of it, and my husband is reading it at the same time, so I've stopped reading it because he gets a little bit of time to read, and he's spending all his time trying to figure out where he was in the book. But I am going to read it because I really, really enjoy the discussion of epistemology. And this is something that we're going to talk about more on the blog and in social media for We Are Atheism. But before we tell somebody how wrong they are, even if there is real, verifiable, scientific evidence that, you know, your chiropractor's crazy or whatever, you know, that's not where we need to come from. Trying to understand them and trying to ask them questions to get them to see things for themselves if they really are wrong. Any of those things. Just taking the time to think of someone as a person, as an individual, and empathize with them, rather than just saying, you're part of this group is wrong, and I'm going to put out my wall message here. Oh, well, the Bible isn't proven at all, so anything else you have to say, and not really caring. Because I feel like a lot of that is coming from I know what's right, and I don't even want to discuss it. And maybe you don't. But on the face of atheism as a general group, I think that individuals need to take the time to empathize with other people around them. And if each, and at the risk of sounding like kumbaya here, but at the risk of that, if each atheist took the time to empathize a little bit more with an individual that they deal with in their life, the face of atheism would be a more positive face. Don't you want that religious person you know to think of you, that atheist that they do know, as a kind and caring individual who cares about what they have to say, who doesn't belittle them or look down on them? That is a positive face for atheism, and that's why I want to talk about it this week. And we've gone over 10 minutes. So weareatheism.com, We Are Atheism on Twitter, and We Are Atheism here on the YouTubes and the Facebooks. So thanks for spending time with me, and tell me, what do you think? Empathy, atheism, people aren't groups, beliefs not in a vacuum. Do you have a story? Do you have a question? Do you have a comment? Do you have a hate comment? Let us know.